Hello and welcome back to TNN's coverage of the world's 9 best fantasy football players league. I'm Danny Football, filling in for your host, and this is what we have for you this week. Week 16, and it was the semifinals of the playoffs with some big upsets. TNN reached out to the two teams that were in the Toilet Bowl, Blood, Sweat, and Beers, and Coochie Gang, and the two teams that are in the championship, Team M Vanek and the SWAT team, to see how they were preparing for the final showdowns of the season.
Hello to all the viewers and fans of TNN and the world's 9 best fantasy football players league. I'm Tom Walsh, majority owner and part manager of the Coochie Gang, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about playing in this week's Toilet Bowl. We here at the Coochie Gang are very excited to be participants in the Toilet Bowl. We know it's not necessarily a part of our goals or signs of success at the start of the season, but I think we can all say, as fans of this league, that being able to participate in bowl weekend and a part of the bowl season is very big for your program. Name recognition, national presence, great recruiting tool, an ability for the players to get to go somewhere else, really participate in this big hyped up game and get excited for something. So we're really looking forward to it. We're seeing all the good signs of it. This year was a real, we made a big decision to move towards rebuilding towards the future. And we really think that we're going to have some success in that and be able to achieve higher heights in the coming seasons. But for now, we're looking forward to the Toilet Bowl, and we just want to say, earlier this season, a lot of league pundits voted on who they think, the most historic franchise is, but I think it's participating in weekends like this, in the bowl season, in these nationally televised games, that really helps build on the history of your program and establish a national presence, and I think we're very happy to be doing that here at the Coochie Gang. That being said, go Coochie Gang. Best of luck to all the other teams participating in bowl weekend, except for Tooches. And go Irish.
Hey, what's up, world's 9 best fantasy football players? Jacob Calathor, team president of BSB, checking in here. I've been asked to comment by the TNN Media Relations Committee on the involvement of BSB in the Toilet Bowl, so-called Toilet Bowl of the league. I know there's been a lot of chatter these past couple weeks about, what is Jacob doing? BSB is mid. They're not set up well for the future. And yet, here we are. I got the number 1 overall pick, which is available for trade if anyone is interested, by the way. Just putting it out there, out into the wild. I've been known to make some splashy trades in the past. The team looks good. Team morale is hot. I've been training for the potential beer mile. Not running any miles, but drinking a lot of beers. But man, look at this. How could I be upset about where I am and where the team is? It's 80 degrees. It's beautiful out. It's sunny. I had Wine Wednesday at work. I'm enjoying the weather and I'm enjoying being by the water. This is the model franchise. This is where all the free agents want to come. You guys better watch out for your players, because it could be very, very close to joining me here in the beautiful, beautiful weather. BSB out.
Hey, what's up, guys? It is the team owner of championship contender Team M Vanek. It feels like just last year, because it was, that I had a paper bag over my head talking about how embarrassed I was about this team.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's the owner of almost but not entirely winless Team Sam Hinkie.
I wasn't sure when I'd feel comfortable showing my face again to the league, and just how I had an extremely uncertain future as a team owner. But here I am, 1 year later, in the championship game, taking on Dynasty SWAT team. I just could not be any more proud of the guys on the squad and how they just fought so hard over the course of the year to get us to where we are. I thought about doing a hype video for this video, but then I realized What I really want is revenge. And also, I think a hype video would have taken too much time to make on the computer. So instead, what I thought I'd do is I'd read into the record 4 quotes that esteemed expert Danny Football made about Team M Vanek this year. I think Danny Football tried to run back some of his statements that he made in the beginning of the year towards the end of the season, but I'd just like to show the viewers who he really was in the beginning of the year and some of the horrid things that he said about this franchise. So the first one I'd like to read is from the division draft in the beginning of the year, where Danny Football said, quote, "It makes complete sense that Brett wanted to lock up that poor franchise with that number 1 overall spot. Team M Vanek is a 5-tool player. They've got not a lot of draft picks, not a lot of talent, questionable ownership, questionable team name, and a history that has been lacking success. Those are the 5 tools." End quote. So disrespectful. Week 1, Danny Football said, quote, "I think this team will be an absolute bottom feeder this year. I wouldn't be surprised if this team is going to be stripped for parts mid-season and get anyone they can to get future draft picks in return." End quote. Week 3, quote, "I honestly don't have too much to say about Team M Vanek. They took the loss last week, and I expect them to take a lot more throughout the season." End quote. And then finally, just a short and sweet one that kind of sums up Danny Football's attitude towards him throughout the year. Quote, "I'm very surprised to see Team M Vanek being favored in anything." So I have nothing but love for Danny Football and all of TNN. I'm a huge fan of the show and I'm watching them every week. But I just like to let you know that Team M Vanek has seen your comments and has taken them to heart and has really, just that's been their main motivator all throughout the year. And I'm just so proud that they've gotten to this point, and they just look forward to continuing to prove the haters wrong and hopefully taking home the first non-SWAT team, non-commissioner trophy for the world's 9 best fantasy football players league. So thank you.
Hey everyone, very happy week 17. Excited to be back in the championship for the 4th straight year. Just SWAT team going out there, continuing our dominance, as I had mentioned before. Of course, all black for my villain era in the league. Ignore the white undershirt. Wishing everyone great luck. Team M Vanek, very formidable opponents all year. And I think it's going to be a real showdown. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be back next week to give updates on how much is owed to everybody, and I am begging Brett to please run the Survivor wheel so that we know who took home the prize in the Survivor competition. That's all I got. Best of luck to the SWAT team, of course. And, maybe we'll see another league champion crowned this year. And now, here's Danny Football with his picks for week 17. Hey, what's up, guys? World's 9 best fantasy football players expert, Danny Football here, back with another week of expert predictions. Last week, pretty good for me, going 5-1, bringing my total on the year up to a very nice 57-31. My guest, Vanek, had an okay week, going 3-3, not good enough to beat the expert. But now, it's the last week of the playoffs. I'm inviting one more guest back who was able to best me in the regular season, chance to redeem myself. So it's a new week, there's a new guest, and a new chance to beat the expert. So guest, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Miguel Urbanella here, defensive coordinator of the historic franchise, undefeated, never lost, here after a big win. So I'm going to flaunt. I'm going to be excited. Obviously, I'm here as the final boss for Danny Football's
Of course.
picks. Really meeting with a real expert when it makes a difference. So I guess Visconti beat you both this year, so it's not even that big of an accomplishment anymore. But here to
Yeah.
do the same, I guess, represent UNL.
Yeah, I've had a rough streak with Visconti recently. I think he's beaten me the past 2 years. So, everyone gets lucky every once in a while.
Yeah, every blind squirrel, right?
Exactly.
All right, let's get going.
All right, first up, we have JK taking on undefeated, never lost. JK favored at 51%. Really, some nice performances from both of these teams last week. Saved themselves from that toilet bowl matchup, giving them, maybe a little bit of hope heading into the next season, headed into this off season. This game really does not matter too much at all, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but it is one of those classic rivalries in the league, so I think it is worth discussing just a little bit. These are two teams I'm gonna have my eye on this offseason heading into next year. Joe doesn't have too much room to maneuver without those draft picks, but he's got the talent there, and if he can get another piece somewhere. I don't know how that's going to happen, but if he can get another piece, I think he's got the path to make a push next year. And undefeated never lost, obviously, is a pretty young team, perpetually looking to turn the corner. They've got their high draft pick yet again. So
Hmm.
it's always interesting to see what they do in the offseason. And maybe next year will finally be their year. I'm going to make a bold claim here and say that Joe starts Brandon Cooks, who has a huge game in his namesake, the Brandon Cooks Bowl. And I'm going to go with JK to pick up the win in this one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of forgot about this rivalry to be honest. I've been such a massive supporter of JK this year. I kind of forgot about the fact that I used to hate this team. So I'm trying to get back on the train. Like you said, this is a pretty unimportant matchup.
Hmm.
I'm still pretty high on Mahorny. Like you said, I think their future looks pretty bright. They don't have a lot of picks, but Christian Kirk was out for the end of the year. I think some of his running backs were lackluster as well, but he has a nice little core. Zay Flowers I really like, things like that. It's not that important though. So instead of here, I wrote myself down a little speech here. Instead of taking time to talk about the actual matchup, what I'm gonna do is talk about myself and undefeated never lost. Um,
Great.
I guess going off of Visconti's precedent, I guess I have like 4 or 5 minutes just to go into a bit of a ramble.
At
Um,
least 5 minutes.
yeah, as much as I want, right? So all I'm gonna say is, I believe many of you this year might have seen that I've toned down the obnoxious nature that I used to put off. I even said so myself in the UNLNN episode.
You had to channel it
But
all into the Tom's Friends League. Yeah, and
yeah,
congratulations, by the way. I heard that you and Commissioner Tooch are facing off in the championship over there.
yeah, it's gonna be a big matchup. I'm very excited about that. I'm not a big fan of Commissioner Tuch's move to accept a trade like 4 weeks after I offered it, but at the end of the day, Keaton Mitchell got injured, so I got Gus Edwards, so it's not even that bad. Congratulations to I know you're close friends with him, Commissioner Tooch as well. So
I'll send my regards.
of course. But yeah, what I'm gonna say is I was putting together that edit for the UNLNN episode, and I realized that it was a lot more fun to be a jerk. So this is going to be the last episode of me being nice to other people, me not believing that UNL is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So you guys better make good use of it. I was even going with JK here because I don't really care as a bit of a last hurrah for not being a narcissist, but I thought you were going to go with UNL. I think I need to pick against you in this one if I have a chance of not tying. So I'll actually go with UNL. We also put up, I mean, we put up the second highest score in the league last week or something, like
Yeah,
240 points. So we're looking okay.
yeah. Joe also
Um,
had a nice week last week, so it should be a good matchup.
it should be a good matchup. I mean, this could have been in a different world with different schedules and divisions. This could have been the finals. We
Yeah,
all
I
believe
mean, if
that.
literally
So
everything was different this season, then maybe these two teams would have been facing off for the championship.
yeah, yeah, of course. But yeah, that's all. I was gonna use this as the last hurrah to not pick myself, but I'm gonna be picking UNL every single time I come to this channel ever again and hyping myself up. So be ready for that, guys.
Next up, we have Ham and Throw taking on the Mental Brick Walls in the third place game. Currently 50-50. Who do you like in this one?
First of all, I'm kind of curious to see whether either of these teams will tank this matchup. I believe this is something Tom had the opportunity of doing twice,
Yes.
and he ended up picking ended up pretty much choosing the better pick in exchange for getting his buy-in back
Hmm.
as the prize for third place. I don't think I see either of these teams doing that. Brett, he's had the chance to do this before, and I don't think he did it. And Visconti, I think he would just completely revel in the fact that he was able to get third place. I think the one thing I want to say is that probably even worse than fifth place, as I used to say, probably fourth place is even worse because you give yourself a little bit of hope and then you end up losing and you don't even get
Yeah.
your buy-in back and you get an even worse pick, right? So that's all I'm gonna say. Back to my actual pick. You know me, I've been a massive fan of the Brick Walls for a while. I think they have a great team. I think it's crazy to me that they haven't done as well as they could with their offense. And they've actually had the lowest score in the week in the league last week, which
Yeah.
is crazy given what they have. Brad has quietly over time been one of the best drafters in the league in the rookie drafts. He's gotten people like Amon Ross super late, Devon Achan, obviously. He got Chris Olave, which he ended up trading a haul for a haul. So I think he's been awesome. Hamilton has been putting up really good numbers. He actually has a really good defense this year,
Hmm.
which is strange coming from one of the biggest IDP haters in the league.
True.
Unfortunately for him, they actually have, for my analysis that I did recently, they have the second best starting defense this year, which is kind of crazy, right behind Commissioner Tuch's team and the SWAT
Wow.
team. They're tied with Team Vanek, actually, I believe, which also has underrated defense. But I think they're kind of being propped up by some big performances by people who are not that good. I don't think they have great matchups this week. I really want to see them be fourth place because that's just going to be absolutely beautiful after they put themselves up. He really thought there for a while that he was going to win it. Now he's going to be fourth place, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So I just really want to see that happen. I'm still high on Brett's team, so I'm going with the mental brick walls here.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. These are two 7-7 teams. Frankly, they had some nice upsets, but no one really expected them to do too much. So I think you could consider this a success for both of these teams being able to make it to this point. They just simply ran into, the two superior teams last week. They were the two top seeded teams. Neither of these teams able to get it done. I'm sure that Visconti is still out there in the ether, like very delusionally hoping for that stat correction that he's somehow going to make his way into the championship game, just get a nice 7 point swing somewhere. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering if that energy is going to kind of distract his team this week, whether they're really going to be able to, go out there and put up a good performance against the brick walls if they're still got their eyes set on the championship. For the
Yeah.
brick walls, I'm sure Brett is pretty upset that his team is in this matchup because he's been very low on the team all year. I'm sure he wanted to get as high of a draft pick as humanly possible. So that is something that I have had weighing on my mind while picking this matchup. I know you said he has not taken this opportunity to tank in the past, but I think there's a decent chance that he does so
Okay.
here. I think it is going to be a very typical trademark Visconti move to really care about getting that third place and getting as far away from possible as the fifth place prediction that he has been staring down all year. So I think his team is going to come out really hard in this one. I'm not sure what Brett's thinking. I think there's a possibility that he tanks. And I'm going to go with Ham and Throw to pick up the win in this one. Congratulations,
Interesting.
Ham and Throw.
I think you might just be doing this because you know that when you don't pick him, I mean, we'll see.
We'll see. You might have figured my ways out, Miguel. All right, next up in the toilet bowl, we have Coochie Gang taking on Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Koo currently favorite at 53%. This is going to be a great toilet bowl game. These are actually two new teams in the toilet bowl, so we're going to be having a new champion here. Both of these teams, this is actually their first time in the consolation bracket, the toilet bowl. Both of them had made the playoffs every single year up until this year, so really big falling off for these teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how they, kind of try to bounce back during the course of this off season. Both teams loaded up with two first round draft picks for next year's draft. Personally, I think especially Jacob with that first overall pick, he's in a pretty good position to make that big leap back into possible playoff contention next year. This matchup is a pretty sad state of affairs. I know Blood, Sweat, and Beers has been all in on the tank, and they probably expected to end up in this spot. They've got a couple of solid guys to build around in Jamar Chase and presumably Marvin Harrison. They've got some key pickups that I think could actually be pretty big for them in this matchup with Ivan Pace and Ty Chandler. Just goes to show that the Blood, Sweat, and Beers scouting crew really out there just scraping the bottom of the barrel, making sure that they get those players that'll really make a difference in week 17. Coup, on the other hand, they're going to be starting Demarcus Robinson, who they just picked up this week, which is never a great sign when you have to plug and play someone in week 17. This team also has basically no running backs whatsoever. They're going to be starting Damian Pierce and Alexander Madison. So I don't know, two backups in your starting lineup, never a great sign. I think they may be in for a pretty rough rebuild, considering this is the biggest weakness of their team, and this is generally regarded to be a pretty poor running back class in this upcoming draft. I think that that very tough rebuild is going to get kicked off right here with a toilet bowl loss, and I'm going to go with Blood, Sweat, and Beers to pick up the win, sending Tom to the beer mile punishment.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't release the results for the poll that I did for the UNL and N episode because I thought the episode was pretty long. I couldn't really fit it in, but this was actually the most predicted toilet bowl matchup by the 10 owners that responded to the poll. Four of them actually predicted this exact matchup between the two
Wow.
teams. Out of four of those, three of them actually chose Blood, Sweat, and Beers to lose.
Mm.
Um, and even the other owners that didn't pick one of these two teams to lose or didn't pick this exact matchup, they pretty much chose one of these two teams to lose, but it was mostly to UNL in the toilet bowl. So I mean, this was kind of expected, like you said. I think both these teams knew coming into the toilet bowl that this was probably going to happen. I
Yeah.
believe they were the two teams with the buys as well, right?
They were, yeah. It's
Um,
interesting. I think that's the first time
yeah,
that's
both.
happened in league history where the two teams with the bye in the championship and toilet bowl both actually make that final game.
Yeah, man. Those buys were pretty important, I guess. Especially Timmy must be really, really upset about not having
He's
the buy
probably
in the first
fuming right
round.
now.
Yeah,
Timmy,
oh
if
my
you're
God.
fuming right now, let us know.
Let us know in the chat right here or down here. If you're not a fan of the show enough to come to the lives, just let us know right afterwards. But yeah, looking at these teams to me, like you said, I think Blood, Sweat, and Beers has a much easier path to a rebuild, especially because their team right now is in such a better shape.
Yeah.
They still have some good pieces around them: Jamar Chase, Mari Cooper, Ivan Pace, like you said, Montez Sweat. While Coochie Gang, they kind of sold everything they had going for them outside of like Dak and some IDPs that are probably not going to be that good next year. I think they have a path. They have to kind of hit these two draft picks that they have out of the park. But I believe it's going to be a longer rebuild. It's probably going to be a multi-year rebuild unless they maybe trade for running back or something like that. But we'll see how it happens. It would be interesting to hear Kevin Moss's thoughts after this being his first year in
True.
Dynasty fantasy football. Kevin Moss, if you're watching, if you're a fan of the show, I know of another co-owner who signed up to join this league with high hopes. Actually, I know two of them um, who have also been disillusioned about how good their team was. I have to say, this is the start of, if Tom tells you that they're probably going to compete next year, he's probably lying. Because it's something I've said many times to my co-owners, and here we were in the toilet bowl. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I think, like I said, Blood, Sweat, and Beers has a much better team right now. To me, this is the most clear pick of the week. I'm surprised Sleeper doesn't even see this the same as we do. I'm going with Blood, Sweat, and Beers.
Finally, we have our marquee matchup of the week, the championship SWAT team taking on Team M Vanek. SWAT currently favored at 59%. Who do you like in this matchup?
To me, I think the story of this is that these are very different teams.
Hmm.
Both in terms of past results. We've had the SWAT team who was some people would say almost a historic franchise at this point. Won three in a row, are chasing their four-peat, which is absolutely incredible. Team Vanek, on the other hand, had the 101 last year,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they find themselves in the finals, which is incredible. In terms of league perception, too, I think these are two vastly different teams. In the poll that I sent out, which I clearly am releasing the results of right now, out of the eight owners, eight of them said that the SWAT team would at least reach the championship round.
Wow.
Only two of them actually said that SWAT team would win. But clearly people were still high on this team and thought they would perform in the playoffs. Out of the 10 league owners, how many would you guess believe that Team Vanek either reached the championship round, and how many of those you think believe that Team Vanek would win the whole thing?
I'm gonna say one and probably zero picked to win it all.
That is pretty close. It was 0 and 0.
Wow.
I'm not sure if Vanek responded to the poll, because I actually also made it anonymous since I didn't know what I was doing. Um, which is why I don't know who won our predictions. Um, but I don't think anybody really believed this team was this good. Nobody saw them making the finals. And Vanek himself last week didn't seem that high on this team.
Yeah.
So I think it's making for a very interesting story here. On the matchups itself, though, I think it's kind of crazy to see that these two teams have made it this far. So I kind of agreed with the polls. We have for the SWAT team people like Joe Flacco, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, and Ramondre Stevenson starting next week, which
Yeah.
is, I don't know,
And that's a
in
big if.
finals.
That's if Cortland Sutton and Ramondre Stevenson are able to go next week.
Yeah. And even if Cortland Sutton goes, I've heard that Russell Wilson has just been benched.
Yeah.
So it would be somebody else throwing for him. I didn't even know
Jarrett
the backup
Stidham.
quarterback. Whew, okay. Somehow you're probably favored to, or the commissioner's probably still favored to win this. For Team Vanek, it's not as bad in the offense, but they're still starting people like Jaden Reed, George Pickens. It's not super hot for either side. Obviously, I think SWAT team has a better offense in general. When I did my analysis, I found out that the SWAT team actually has had a better starting offense this year than Team Vanek, just putting up
Mm.
all the points that they've had together up to week 14. I think right now, though, Team Vanek's offense looks a lot better.
Hmm.
Bijan has been popping off finally. James Cook too. Keenan Allen's coming back. Derrick Henry's also been pretty boom or bust for a year, but he's been booming recently. So I think they're all coming together at a great time. SWAT team has a much better defense though. I mean, they've been a great as that they have been as great as ever, the whole team. Like you say,
Yeah.
I think they've been slept on, but the power rankings have them as one of the most dominant teams of all time,
Yeah.
which is absolutely insane, especially given the how good Grayson's team was all year. I think their matchups are great. Nick Bosa's might get like 4 or 5 sacks himself against the Commanders, which is going to be awesome for him. Cody Barton and Roquan Smith also have some pretty easy matchups. I will say though, Team Vanek's defense, like I said, has been pretty underrated. They have actually been the second best defense in the league, tied
Mhm.
with Hammond through week 14. So I think people mostly thought of them as a pretty high flying offense, but it's mostly the opposite for these two teams. At the end of the day, though, SWAT team, they're one of the best leagues teams that we've ever seen. And they have a better offense and a better defense than Team Vanek this year. Nevertheless, I'm going to make a statement pick. Do not count Team Vanek out. This is a good team. This is a great
Hmm.
team. This championship round could be very close.
Yeah.
I'm going with David over Goliath. I'm going with the common person over the establishment. I'm going with my heart over my mind. I'm going with Team Vanek.
Yeah, Miguel, I think that's a pretty good pick. I think a lot of the league is going to be behind you in that, both in hopes and in spirit here. Look, shout out to Team Vanek from saving us from what truly could have been a catastrophic championship in this league,
Mhm.
SWAT versus Hammond throw. Like, I genuinely don't know who the league would have been behind in that matchup. I would have loved to have seen some polling on that, who people would have been rooting for in a SWAT versus hand and throw matchup.
I'll tell you right now, I probably would have been rooting for SWAT. That's me though. I could not have dealt with that for a whole year. I've seen Commissioner Tooch be a gracious winner 3 years in a row, even if slightly annoying how good his team is. I think I'd have to leave the group chat for about a year, if that happens. So That's
Yeah.
that's those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone's very glad this is the way it turned out. I don't think a lot of people expected to see this. As you mentioned, no one was really predicting this at the start of the playoffs. Team and Vanek owner Mike Vanek himself was not even predicting this last week. And if I would have asked you last year who would take the longest to reach the championship, I bet a lot of people probably would have said Team and Vanek. Their team just looked to be in terrible shape heading into last year's draft. So props to them. They got a lot of guys that really paid off. And
First overall pick in the division draft.
yeah, exactly. And now here they are. They've got probably about close to 50-50 shot at winning the championship. So props to them. They got a chance to really go out there and become the second franchise ever to stamp their name on the championship trophy. Both of these teams coming into this one a little hobbled, some injuries. SWAT obviously just lost TJ Hawkinson for the season, which huge, huge loss for them. I know they got Trey McBride, but that does definitely diminish their flex spots. Guys like Ramondre, Cortland Sutton, both questionable. They could be looking to start Jacoby Myers and maybe getting an old appearance from their pal Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Team Van Vanek, obviously, without Justin Herbert and Tank Dell, two huge pieces for them this season. Keenan Allen's been questionable, banged up. Don't know what kind of performance he's going to be putting out there this week. I'm not saying this is going to be a high-powered matchup, but I think it's the one that we have, and I think it's going to be pretty close. With Team Van Vanek actually outscoring the SWAT team both weeks of the playoffs so far. This one, there's very serious upside for both of these teams to win this matchup. I think it is very great that Team Vanek saved us from ham and throw, a team that I'd like to point out for at least one more time this season, a team that I hate and was very happy to see them lose last week. My picking I'm not going to say it impacted the outcome, but I think I may have gotten in Team Hamthrow's head. I am certain that the league is going to be behind this team and Vanek team, but there is just something about the SWAT team. For this team, frankly, they get it done in the playoffs. They're looking to put their name on the trophy for a fourth straight year, setting a record that may never be touched again in this league. It would certainly be a historic performance out of the SWAT team. I think the SWAT team, they've got one last run in them. I'm going to pick them to go for the four-peat and pull out the win in this one.
You're picking the team that beat up on the worst scoring team last week. You had a pretty easy path, or not you, but Commissioner had a pretty easy path to the finals that were in your. You think they're resting up? Is that the idea?
I think so. I think so. Look, the playoffs are weird. Anything can happen in the playoffs, and sometimes you just need to get a little lucky, as you can see with Hammond Throw making it to the semifinals. All you got to do is get into the playoffs, and then anything can happen. Doors wide open.
Interesting. I know you were, as a big fan of the show, I know that usually when you have people coming in for the playoffs and they make their predictions, you end the show by asking them what their predictions are for the winners.
Yes.
Obviously, you don't have to ask for my prediction because I just gave it as the final boss of TNN picks. But one thing that I'm going to challenge you on is we're not going to hold you to this pick. We understand that you have to see how the draft unfolds and how trading unfolds. But
Uh-huh.
what are your early picks for the 2024 Champion and Toilet Bowl winners next year?
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to say the next year is the Bandits year. I think they've
Hmm.
been right on the cusp the past 2 years. I'm going to say they get across the finish line. I see SWAT kind
Okay.
of diminishing after this, and then Toilet Bowl. I'm going to go with the Coochie Gang. I think they, like you mentioned, they're going to be in for a very long rebuild. I don't think it gets done in one year. So Bandits winner, Coochie Gang, Toilet Bowl, possibly 2 years in a row for the Coochie Gang.
Interesting. I thought about this long and hard. I'm gonna go with UNL beating the Bandits in the finals next year, 2024. I'm not sure if you remember, but the first name that UNL had as a franchise in this league was your 2023 World's Best Fantasy Football Players League winners.
Hmm.
This has been solely because of the Keaton Mitchell injury, which did not happen in the playoffs. This happened well before the playoffs. This has been pushed back 1 year, and we are winning next year. I think I have a pretty good pick for the toilet bowl. I think that one to watch out for is Team Big Chungus 22. Now that he
Yeah.
has all those people who are pretty old after he's made that push. I'm actually going to go with Team Big Chungus 22 to actually lose his first toilet bowl, I believe,
Yeah.
which is quite historic, I think. And then we'll get to see Will do the beer mile. What's your prediction as well for the time? If you're, let's just assume Tom loses, because that's who we both picked.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go with I feel like Tom can do it pretty fast. I know he's a runner, he's a marathoner.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna give him I can't remember what Mike Vanek got.
Then he's in like 21 or something.
Something like that. I'm gonna give Tom like 13 minutes.
13.
Yeah. I think he'll have
Interesting.
a pretty good performance.
Okay, okay. I do not trust Tom that much. That is an insane pace, I think. I don't know actually. I've seen him on Instagram. He is a runner.
Hmm.
He's a track star. I'm gonna go 16. That's gonna be
16.
my pick. 16. If Jacob does it, 25.
I don't know, man. Jacob's been training. He's looking pretty
Oh,
good.
really?
Yeah,
Ah,
he's
good
he's
for
been
him.
training.
Drinking a lot of beers.
I take that back. Jacob, if you do it in over 10 minutes, you should be ashamed of yourself as someone who's is a training. Either that or it's false reporting. That's all I'm gonna say. One last pick in Tom and Friends League. Like you said, we have a exceptional matchup to end the year between Dog and Team Dan V97. Who have you got in this one?
I got to go Team Dan V97. I think they've been the best team in the
Mm,
league all year
yeah.
and really just pulling one over on Dog with the Nico Collins, Gus Edwards trade. I know Nico's
Straight
popping off
up.
this week.
Yeah, because CJ's coming back. I'm quite scared for people who are not in the league to have an idea. I am in the championship round, but I'm starting Gus Edwards and Roshan Johnson as my two running backs. The rest of my room is pretty stacked, but I don't feel that good. The commissioner's team has been averaging about 150 points a game for a standard league, so or for a PPR, but we don't have like a bunch of IDPs, so I'm quite scared. I'm gonna go with my own team though. I'm gonna go with Team Dog. I'm gonna go 2-0 against Commissioner this week and Danny Football. It's gonna be glorious.
Well, Miguel, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm wishing you all the best of luck with your picks. Good luck in that championship matchup, and it's been great having you on. And I look forward to having you back on the show next year.
Of course, thank you, Danny Football.
And thank you, Danny Football and guest Miguel, for those great picks. That's all we have for you this time. Be sure to tune in next week to see how things shook out. I'm Danny Football, and this has been TNN.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell.